Welcome back, you're live with Expresso. Thank you so much for tuning in as we broach something that hits all the right notes with me as a dad who loves to read to his little one. We're now going to turn our attention to the truly fantastical world of the Treehouse children's book series by acclaimed Australian author Andy Griffiths and illustrated by Terry Denton, in which the characters, Andy and Terry, live in a 117-story high treehouse. Just picture it. Andy has always been the narrator and Terry the illustrator, but when Terry tries to prove that he can draw and narrate, the story goes completely out of control. Now, Andy is visiting South Africa to help us come to grips with how it is possible to have a 117-story treehouse and why the series has parents and children alike absolutely enamored. Please give him a very warm Expresso welcome.
Thank you.
First of all, Andy, thank you so much for coming to South Africa.
It's a pleasure. I'm thrilled so many kids and parents are enjoying the books. We are very surprised and delighted.
Well, hopefully not too surprised, because you guys put blood, sweat, tears, and a lot of coffee as you proven into this. You've hit on something truly magical, truly beautiful. The treehouse story, obviously the treehouse itself gets taller and taller, but the love and emotional investment in the story seems to be growing as well, building beautiful momentum. What sparked the initial idea? How did this start for you?
Well, Terry and I have been working together for 25 years now, a long time, and we've had a lot of time to experiment with text and picture and get a balance where I could get Terry to tell the story visually, and I do much less words, but it opens the book to an enormous range of people, because pictures really help the beginning reader decode the text, you know.
Not just the beginning reader, okay.
And adults who have to read the book at
You've got to apply tone,
you don't want to be reading oceans of text. You want to be able to interact with your child. And Terry and I, we have a ball doing this, you know, we're just having a laugh the whole time. And one time we couldn't think of an idea for a book, so I said, let's write a book about not being able to write a book. And we'll live in a treehouse with a bowling alley and a shark tank, and all this stuff will be going on, and that's why we can't write the book. And that's how it was born.
That is a winning formula for an author who gets struck by writer's block. Let's just write about ourselves not being able to write. I love that. So Terry, being the illustrator, tries his hand at the narrating, and things go awry. What birthed the 117th story? How do we go into this edition?
Well, we always deal with a reader's problem at the beginning of the book. I talk directly to the reader. So if you're like most of our readers, you're probably wondering why Terry never gets to tell the story. Well, you know, he's hopeless, and no one would ever let an illustrator tell a story.
Which is all true.
And then it goes out of control, and then we have a visit from the story police, because they try to arrest us for crimes against storytelling, of which in our books there are many, not the least of it being the probability of a treehouse like this existing.
No, 118 stories, ridiculous. 117 stories,
perfect.
Doable.
Well, we started with 13. Terry drew an initial plan based on my sharks and bowling alley request, but he happened to just draw 13 stories in this beautiful architecturally kind of valid style.
We're looking at some of the pictures, it's just gorgeous, mate.
I said to him, I didn't know you could even draw this well. And he said, well, I used to be an architecture student, but I dropped out. So he's delighting in this. So we started with 13. The kids in Australia just loved it. And then we said, let's add another 13. We'll make 26-story treehouse, and then we'll add another 13. So there's a secret code running through it all.
Which I'm sure the kids love, mapping that out.
Yeah.
There's got to be a requisite amount of satisfaction when reading these books. I know this from my own experience reading to my boy. That's from both parents and child. Yep. But for me, the most beautiful thing is watching an imagination come to life. What feeds your love and commitment to doing this? Because creating a book is no mean feat. It is a difficult process. As much as you love it, it's difficult. What feeds your love of the imagination?
Well, I was lucky to grow up in a house with a lot of books around. Story time was a regular feature of our family. And I had this feeling when I was reading a good book, often by Enid Blyton back in those days.
For sure.
The Faraway Tree.
Oh, I was talking about that yesterday.
All right. Yeah, so I owe a little debt to that book. book. But it gave me a feeling of freedom and adventure and unlimited possibility, and it was a little bit scary as well. And I wanted to capture that feeling for the next generation. So to say, look, you can have movies, you can have computer games, but you don't want to not have books, because it's a very personal kind of interactive thing where you're supplying a lot of the work in conjunction with the author. So I just go back to the books I loved, and I still read them. I also loved comics, and I loved, you know, particularly ones about monsters destroying the city and crazy scientists in the laboratory. We have an underground laboratory.
Of course.
And Terry loved Mad magazine, so you're getting a real blend of everything we loved, and that's where the inspiration comes from. And then to see kids really living the books,
to see that manifest in that way,
spending their pocket money on the books, that is a very good motivation. I don't want to let them down.
I've got to ask one very quick question. Can it get any taller? Can we add a few more?
Of course. We've got a building permit for the Treehouse. We dealt with that. We had a visit from Inspector Bubble Wrap, and he's quite happy. He said we had to build a wheelchair disabled access ramp. So we built the world's most dangerous wheelchair access ramp.
Oh man, I know a lot of South African wheelchair-bound kids that are going to be really excited about that.
Oh yeah.
Thank you so much for bringing this and bringing your love and bringing your motivation out here to South Africa as well. I think the children that get to meet with you and those that go to the readings are very privileged. So thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
What an absolute privilege and a pleasure. I'm just thinking of Mr. Pots and Pans, and if you haven't read The Faraway Tree, do that as a precursor to reading this.
Don't forget Dame Washerwoman, who throw a dirty water all over you.
You're making me scared. You're making me scared. I love it, man. Well, if this has ticked some boxes like me for you as well, and if you and your children are a big fan of Andy's books, then we've got a very exciting announcement just for you. We are giving away 3 sets of Treehouse book hampers, and each hamper consists of 5 books, including the latest installment, the 117-story Treehouse, to the total value of 650 Rand. But it's a lifetime of golden memories that you can create in one hamper. Entering is really simple. All you have to do is head on over to our Expresso Facebook page, find this competition post, and answer the question, which installment of the Treehouse series is your favorite and why? The competition closes at midday today, so get on it quickly, but you can find all the terms and conditions on expressoshow.com.